right, everyone. I'm here with Jenny, who lost 50 pounds in a coaching program and achieved many other what we call non-scale wins, including a promotion, passing a very challenging exam. And she's done all of this while going on vacations and having dozens of social events, lots of social events. So that was pretty cool. If you want to hear how she's done it and learn about her experience, you want to stick around. And Jenny, thank you so much for doing this and joining me today. It's been a very exciting experience to work together. We'll get to your results soon, so people can see about your journey. But before we dive in, do you want to give the viewers a little intro on who's Jenny?
Yeah, sure. I'm Jenny. I live in Texas, the great country. State. And I was a teacher for years. I taught band and then moved over to the culinary world, went to culinary school, and actually ended up teaching culinary to high school students. And then most recently, the job motion involved me overseeing culinary at our district level. So there's four of us that oversee the programs. I have culinary as one of about five programs I oversee, but I'm a now CTE coordinator and loving life. It's awesome.
Awesome. Before everything started, what was going on in your life?
So back then, before we started together, Leo, I had been through a program before that was very restrictive, and I was unhappy with my weight because it all came back. So I'd lost quite a bit of weight. I was down almost 100 pounds there. It was like 80 pounds or so, and it just wasn't sustainable. Though I went through so much at the gym, and then with what we were eating or not eating, for that matter, it was so restrictive. As a chef too, it was a challenge to be able to find anything to eat. So most of the time I had to bring food with me everywhere. So I was just struggling. And once that part of the program was over, it just seemed to slowly start packing back on. Like I couldn't keep it off because that way of eating was not sustainable. And I didn't realize it until after the fact. And you keep trying, you're realizing I can't keep this up and I don't know what to do. So it all kind of came back on slowly. I mean, it takes a couple years, and that was COVID times. And you thought you were doing the right things and you're trying to keep working out, but you can't outwork a bad eating habit. It just doesn't go away. So I knew I was back in a place where I needed some help and something. And I saw James and Susan and some others on this hotel fit journey. And if someone like James Cantor tells me it worked for me, you can do it. You got to trust that, and you just got to go with it and be like, okay, if James says okay, it's worth a try. So, yeah, I was in
Definitely.
a spot where I was uncomfortable in the kitchen, couldn't make it through a day hardly. Like everything was hurting, clothes are uncomfortable. Just a lot of things were wrong. So, yeah, it was time to do something.
Yeah, and so far so good. But I remember that well before, like on our first conversations, your main concern was to do something that wasn't as restrictive as last time, and that you would actually, keep the weight off once you progressed and everything else. So that was your main concern, and you were kind of like you were looking for certainty that that was not going to happen again, because obviously like you lost a lot of weight and you gained it back. That was very frustrating to you. But what was your experience like when you first got started?
At first, you're like, for me, it was. Do I trust this? Do I really want to go through this again because of what I just went through? It's kind of like when you have a bad relationship, and then do I want to do that again? I don't want to go back in that because I went through so much for a couple of years. And the best part about my previous journey is I made a lot of friends at that gym that I'm still friends with now. But the process of getting there and trying to get that weight off was so traumatic. It's a harsh word, but I'm going to say it. It was so traumatic to go back and say, okay, I'm going to try this again, but with somebody else with a new program. It's terrifying because I'm afraid that I'm going to have to go through that same stuff again. And then I'm going to be back to where I started. And I remember saying it so many times. I'm going to be back where I started. Like, look at this. I'm going to go through all this work. You pay the money, you do the things, and then you go back where you were. So to start the program, it was a little terrifying. But again, when you have friends that say, if I can do this, you can do this, and it's worth it, you have to trust the process. And I got in and I started, and I think the process of it being a slow introduction to make sure you're on the right path before you start was super important for me. It's sometimes too slow, right? You start real slow, and I think, is this really real? Like, is this really going to work? Is this really happening? And slowly, as we add each layer onto this hotel fit, when we travel through the floors and we get there, you're like, okay, I see things happening. I see sustainability. I see something that I can do. and it worked. So starting off was a bit scary, but yet you just got to trust it. And it was slow enough to where you're not doing everything all at once. And I think that's what happens when you do these programs or something with someone, right? You just jump in and you start immediately and everything changes, and that's not sustainable. You can't just start and change your workouts and change your eating habits and change your mind processes, and it doesn't work that way. The slow process was super important for me.
One of the things that I enjoyed most seeing was the fact that you could still like go and eat out at restaurants and see friends, and you had so many things going on, and you were constantly being invited for stuff, and you still managed to navigate your way around it. Even in weeks where we didn't see a lot of progress, you were still feeling fine, still hitting the workouts, and still enjoying life. That's an important thing that you probably weren't able to do in the past. You have more control over a way that you can eat, and it makes sense to your lifestyle, and you can also enjoy everything else. But let's talk about your results. What's the difference between now and when you first got started?
Besides the 50 pounds that are no longer here, you can see most of my face now. It's, to me, it's little things like clothes definitely make the difference, right? You have things, everybody has that don't fit. A plethora of chef coats because the weight has changed and fluctuated. So I have all the sizes, right? And to go to pick up a different coat that didn't fit, and you're like, oh, this chef coat fits now, right? To put on a pair of pants that were so tight, you're like, oh, like I can't wear these, and they start to fit. And then it's little things in there that, like you said, the process wasn't straightforward. There were weeks in there that nothing really happened, and that's okay. Because I was learning, like in the previous program, it was a lot of restrictions. And so I was scared to go out to eat because I never could go out to eat anything because I couldn't find anything. And it was trying to learn and hear you say, it's okay. Like your food is good. You're doing the right thing. And so to see the process actually working, to go out and eat, and a shirt fitting or a pair of pants, or like, wow, I need to buy a pair of pants. I don't want to buy a bunch of clothes because my goal is to get way past this, but you got to get another pair of pants to get you through work, and it was the first time getting on a plane because we travel a lot, and I was traveling with seat belts or something that were extensions, so I could sit and not be called out by the flight attendant or something. So to sit in a seat and put on a seat belt and it just fits, or to go to a stadium somewhere and you fit in the seat, it's like you just sit and then you look around. Like to other people, it's not a big deal. You go to a stadium or you go somewhere and you don't worry about fitting in the seat. You just sit in your seat. And for someone that's bigger, it's terrifying to wonder, am I going to fit here? Am I overweight for this activity? And to be able to do that stuff is pretty cool. So I think the two big ones was clothes and things that wasn't fitting, and getting on an airplane and just sitting down and enjoying the flight. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. It was very nice to see that you were able to get on that blue chef's jacket. That was pretty cool too.
Yeah, there's pictures of that somewhere, right?
Yeah.
If I go look up the blue chef coat.
What would you say was your biggest challenge?
I think when I first started, and we just talked about this, is breakfasts and coffee. Like on the weekends, I wouldn't say I was an avid sugary coffee drinker, but I do love coffee. I got a lot of coffee training, and a little milk, a little sugar, and these breakfasts. I would sit on the weekends and have breakfast hash, and it's just breakfast was my thing. Like I could have breakfast all day long, but to get up on the weekend and not have my little breakfast and coffee, it was a struggle to figure out how to make it work. And it's not to say that I don't ever have that, and that's, I think the thing that people need to understand is that you're not giving something up. And that's what people say. I don't know how you do that. They tell me all the time, I don't know how you don't eat. I'm like, it's not about not eating. It's helping your body understand it needs to reset and eating the right things to get you through the day. And that's not what I was doing before. Because I think I've had more people tell me, oh, I don't eat. Yeah, so I must be intermittent fasting. I'm like, not quite the same. Like, just not eating for a day is not what it's about. It's about eating the right things the night before to get through the day. And so, you get to a point where I wake up and I'm like, man, I really kind of miss my breakfast and my coffee that I used to have. But at the same time, you learn how to drink a different coffee, or you do it a different way, or you have tea all day, or it's okay. And if you want your coffee, you have your coffee. Like I learned that too. And I think that's why this process has been slow enough for me that it's not an abrupt change to my life. It's been a long process of sustaining this slow weight loss and getting to where we need to be. I'm still not there yet, and I'll get there, but I'd rather go nice and slow. And if I need breakfast one morning or I need that certain coffee that I wanted, it's okay to have it. Just just not every day, and you do it in moderation when you need it, because otherwise, if you restrict yourself from everything, you're never going to get where you need to be. So it's been, I think the biggest challenge was just in the beginning, understanding A, what I needed to do and how to do it, and B, getting out of my head that the previous program I did is not the way it works. To get all that out of my head and say, you can eat that, right? That was the biggest challenge, was going, oh, I can go to a restaurant and eat this or find what I want, and how it fits my plan now. And there's so much food out there that you can have. So those are probably the biggest challenges.
When you were changing jobs and finalizing that exam, and you have all these social events going on, most people would gain weight in that situation. Did you get progressing slowly but surely?
Yeah,
We would see
yeah.
a
That
different number.
period, that period of that exam was pretty. I think I started that in September, around beginning of September, because it was right around my birthday, and I didn't finish until Thanksgiving. So that's a good solid couple of months, almost 3 months of hard work and being on calls late at night and twice a week. And that was a rough time. And yeah, we talked a lot about making it through those things and adapting. And, you may not get everything done. And we talked about, like, okay, all the workouts may not happen every week, but just try and get there and do something, or get down to the river and walk, or, just something to make it happen. And so we've adapted, and it's true. I think that's why this keeps my weight loss going in the right direction, because you adapt. And like I said, if you need to have breakfast one morning, it's okay. Like, the world is not going to end, but you just got to stay on track and just keep going. So, adding a walk here and there or whatever you need to do. Yeah, that testing period was horrendous. But yeah, we stayed kind of steady and just keep going.
Also, it was the festive season, so that was the danger zone, and it's great. So, what would be your advice for any potential chef that's watching this right now that could be in a similar situation as you were before we got started?
I would say, one, trust the process, and two, you're worth it. I think people put a price tag on things and they go, "Oh, I can't afford that." And in reality, I know in reality some people can't afford things, but to be honest, I think when you really look at your budget and you go, "This is really worth it, and this is worth it for me," you find a way, right? We had to do that. We had to cut out do, or things that may have been extra for us, but it's like you find a way to make it work. Because listening to my friends that went through this same process with you and are still help, or you still do it, you may not be 100% in the program, like working right next to Leo, but you still have these things that you learn that you can keep doing. And so to listen to other people do this and say, you know what, it is sustainable and it is something I can do, and it's something I can do in my kitchen and at my job. And because I think that's the thing, most chefs are like, oh my god, there's no way I can do this. I have to eat all the food, I have to taste everything, I have to do all these things, and you really don't. There's ways around it to make it work. So I just think I tell people, just give it a chance. I like the way the program's shaped. I like that there's a first phase of this, and sometimes once you get in that first phase and you realize, okay, this is doable, then you realize I need to keep going, and there's more to this. So um, to listen to my friends that have done this before, to listen to you about the research you've done and the things that you've learned, and putting this whole program together, it's really fascinating. It's kind of opened up a lot of windows for me. So to look through and see, like, this is good, like, this is worth it, and it's, you've learned how to teach other people. I think that's important, because you can tell you've been through the process, and you've worked on this for quite some time, and you've done enough research, because you always seem to have an answer for every question I have. And I'm the questionable one. I'm always like, hey, what about this? And you're like, hey, I did research on that. Let's try this thing, or let's try that. And there's always something to try, and there's something new. So I think that's really cool, this program. So I would say chefs need to give it a shot, for sure.